Good afternoon, class. I hope that you guys had a great weekend. It's raining here in Roanoke, Virginia, but you can check out your discussion boards have been graded. Let me just make one really quick comment about the discussion boards. We're now into our fourth week, and so I'm going to start getting a little bit more, I guess, strict in terms of the proper forms for the footnote citations. By now, you should understand and really know how to properly cite your sources. So make sure you take a look at the School to Divinity writing manual and also Turabian. All of those will provide you great examples of how to properly cite the various kinds of sources that we'll be using over the course of this term. So check that out. And if you have any questions about the proper form for a particular source, just shoot me an email and I'll do my best to locate the proper form and help you with that. Please also, in the email that I'll send out in just a minute, you'll see I gave an example of the proper form for the rethinking of the synoptic problem source, because that's a multiple authored source that is edited. And so there's a different form for that. And so take note of that, because that'll be consistent for other sources that are like Black and Beck. Anyway, also, when we think about discussion boards, make sure you proofread. There's just, it's just not uncommon to see, misspelled words, bad grammar, run-on sentences, lack of proper capitalization, those types of things that if you just properly clean those up, do a little proofreading, boy, it'll really help just your grade be as good as it can be. Let me talk a little bit about this week. Of course, you'll have your second quiz, and that will, I know, bring about its own challenges. So study hard. Make sure that you review whatever you're studying, especially the reading material, but also maybe even some of the video lectures that you have. But I really think that the reading material, going over that, maybe answering all of the different discussion board questions over the past couple of weeks might really help too. But anyway, let me talk a little bit about this week's discussion board questions. There'll be 4 of them, and you'll have the opportunity to answer 2 of those, and make sure that you reply to 2 of your students as well. The first question really deals with the Apostle Paul and basically the chronology of his life. And so what I really want you to do during this question, for this question, is really thoroughly look at the reading and answer the various aspects of that question with the details that relate to his life. His background especially, but his life too. Look at the missionary journeys, just the various things that give us really an idea of his life. And when it comes to the missionary strategy, what missionary strategy did he use? Look carefully in your reading, because there is an important strategy that is sometimes overlooked. And oftentimes students will not give the right answer for that. They'll just simply put, well, his missionary strategy was to just preach wherever he went. Well, that's not necessarily true. Now, did he preach everywhere he went? Yes, he did. But there are particular places where he looked to go, and the textbook notes some of those. So find that if you can. I think that'll really be helpful. The next question really has to do with an issue in Pauline studies that is still even being debated today. So it has to do with E.P. Sanders and his book, Paul and Palestinian Judaism. And it really just talks about a new perspective of how we view really first century Judaism. And so make sure you read through that section very well, understand what Sanders' perspective was called, but also make sure that you read through and carefully understand the critique of his perspective. That will be very helpful. What contributions did his view make, but also what are some of the shortcomings of it? Make sure you list those out pretty good and just answer all the parts of the question. The next question, the next 2 really have to do with Galatians, and one has to do with the Southern Galatian theory versus the Northern Galatian theory. That's the 4th question. And what you want to make sure you do with that one is, first of all, provide all of the necessary evidence for the North Galatian theory, which some students neglect, and the Southern Galatian theory. A lot of times students neglect the Northern because the Southern seems to be the consensus view. But make sure you reference some of the, just the evidence that we may have for the Northern Galatian theory. And then, of course, answer the other parts and give your opinion about what you think is the best view. Now, the third question, I'm sorry it went in reverse order, but the third question just really has to do with the occasion and the purpose of Galatians. Now, this is a great question. Of course, Galatians is a powerful book. So make sure, now, again, the occasion for the book is different than the purpose of the book. So make sure you note those differences, okay, in your reading and then also in your answering of the discussion board questions. And make sure you kind of line out. One of the things that some of the students neglect on this particular question is to really answer the part that really wants us to kind of write out, okay, how did Paul respond to those who opposed him, to the false teachers? How did he respond to them in the book? So make sure you do that. It's really a straightforward discussion board, and now we get into the letters, so I think that it may be a little more exciting. I'm not sure. You get to learn a lot about the specific letters, the Pauline letters, and of course we'll move into the others down the road. But I think this is a little bit more interesting for students, although what we've covered so far is important. But I think for students, and even myself for that matter, when you get into the content, really the specific content of the Bible, especially the letters, it just seems to be a little bit more fun. So make sure you do a good job this week. Again, listen, I'm here to help you. Shoot me an email if you need any help. And also, keep working on that paper. I know it seems crazy, but you really got to focus on that paper. Just take time each week to do some research, some reading, maybe try to do a little writing. But again, look forward to just interacting over this upcoming week. And again, just let me know if I can help in any way. All right? Blessings.